Welcome to Talking Giants player profiles and projections. We've got Danny Shelton, the defensive tackle, specifically nose tackle, 6'2", 345 pounds. That's a lie. That is a lie. He is heavier than 345 pounds.
Has to be.
He's going to turn 28 in a couple of weeks, former first-round pick. Justin, the Giants signed him on a one-year, $1.1 million deal. And what I think might be the most underrated move of the offseason was getting Danny Shelton in on that contract, considering that Dalvin got $11 million average annual value. He had 37 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, and a sack last year. Missed some games, and he missed 4 games. And so in 2019, when he was with Joe Judge and the Patriots, had 61 tackles, 3 sacks, and 2 tackles for a loss. We're going to compare him a little bit to Dalvin on this, and he is not the playmaker that Dalvin Tomlinson is. But he is the two-gap, playing both sides of the center, run stuffer that Dalvin is, but he doesn't have the athleticism to make plays on top of that.
How in the world did Austin Johnson get paid more than twice than Danny Shelton? That's a crime. That should be a crime.
That doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense that happened.
Should be a crime. Ultimately, this episode, spoiler, it's going to be a lot of kind of comparing Danny Shelton to Dalvin Tomlinson. And, I guess we'll just say this to kind of get started. I would like to say that there is no comparing those guys. I think Dalvin Tomlinson is very much a better football player, and this isn't a knock on Danny Shelton. It's more just towards credit for Dalvin Tomlinson.
Well, it just shows up in the numbers. I mean,
yeah.
Dalvin has 15 tackles for a loss for the last 2 seasons. Danny Shelton has 4. That's a big difference. Dalvin has 7 sacks the last 2 seasons. Shelton surprisingly has 4, which isn't that much difference, but that is a decent difference. That could be the difference of 3 drives ending or not during a season. So it's a very clear downgrade from Dalvin Tomlinson, but I still think it's the most underrated move of the offseason when you consider that you have Dexter Lawrence and Landon Williams on this defensive line too.
Yeah, and the fact that you definitely said it. 2 years, $22 million. That's what Dalvin Tomlinson's getting, and then just look at the snap shares in terms of how often they're on the football field. Danny Shelton last 2 years has played 44% and 49% of the snaps the last 2 seasons. Dalvin only played 60% of the snaps last year, and usually he's around 54%. I think last year, it being his contract year, it being his 5th year, and hey, like fourth year, excuse me, you're being relied on a ton. Let's increase your snap share a little bit, which I wanted the Giants to do. But in retrospect, because the Giants have really good depth, if Danny Shelton finishes this year with 45% of the defensive snaps played, and he's primarily a run stuffer anyway, and we have the depth, I'm looking at that saying, yeah, that's really worth it. And this signing and this guy, it's really all about value. And hopefully we're finishing the year saying that this isn't just good value, this is great value. And I'm pretty confident we will be.
But even with that snap share where you say 44%, he missed 4 games. So you want to hear something that's crazy? Because a talking point that I've had over the offseason, and when I really look at it was wrong, was like, oh yeah, is Shelton going to be able to play the amount of snaps that Dalvin Tomlinson? No. But you increase Austin Johnson. Danny Shelton played more than Dalvin Tomlinson when he was healthy. It's per game snaps. And like Dalvin for the season was 60%, which was his highest of his career. Danny Shelton, 60%, 63%, 58%, 74%, 50%, 72%, 61%, 73%, 47%, 73%. And then he got injured mid-game, and then he played week 17. They only played him 38% of the snaps. He played more. Now, I do expect him to be around Dalvin's like 2019, around 55, because Dalvin's just a better player, and the Giants have Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams. But I was kind of like, oh, he's not going to be able to play the snap share that Dalvin did. It's like, well, he does. He flat out does. Again, I do see him around that 55%, but I don't think Austin Johnson's going to have a huge increased role. And Danny Shelton became available a little later in free agency, and I think maybe they don't give Austin Johnson that contract. But regardless, Danny Shelton is the clear nose tackle. I think Austin Johnson will probably play right around the same amount of reps, because Danny Shelton is we talked about him being a downgrade from Dalvin. He has a much bigger upgrade than Austin Johnson.
Yeah, I'd certainly say so. He's a mammoth of a human being. What do we realistically expect him to? He's got to be close to 360.
I think he's Yeah, I think he's between 360, 370.
Yeah. I mean, even next to Dexter Lawrence, I think Dexter has maybe an inch or two on him, but seeing
He's
those
noticeably bigger than everyone else on the D line.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like the only person who might be, I hate saying this and saying is fatter, might be Joe Looney, but I don't even think so.
No. So here's my simpleton rudimentary evaluation of Danny Shelton before you get into the specifics of his game. He's a space eater, where Dalvin Tomlinson was more than just a space eater. He was a mover, plus he made plays. Where Danny Shelton, he may make some plays every once in a while in the run game, but he's never going to stuff the stat sheet with a ton of tackles for loss, ton of sacks, ton of tackles. But he is a space eater, and he's going to mess up plays where if there is a pulling guard, he's going to disrupt the pulling guard from getting to the linebacker, and he's going to get in their way, and then that's going to allow somebody else to come up and make a play. So space eater are the two words that I kind of describe Danny Shelton's game. I'll let you go with the specifics and film of his game, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, in the run game, like you said, he's going to control those A gaps. He's going to stop that center. But you know what he's not going to be able to do? He's not going to be athletic enough to really make those tackles for a loss. Where when he beats a player, when he beats the center in front of him, where Dalvin would be able to track that guy down and make a tackle for a loss, Shelton's making the play for the other guys, So I think that, Dex and Leo should be almost a little happier that they have Danny, because he's not going to take some of those maybe stats away. Or, Blake Martinez tackles for a loss might go up. Like, as a pass rusher, can he push the center back the same way Dalvin did? Yeah. But you know what he's not going to do? He's not a threat to get to the quarterback. He'll have a sack or two this year, but he's not a threat to get to the quarterback. Dalvin Tomlinson somewhat was. He was athletic enough. So it's just he doesn't have the athleticism, the speed, agility that Dalvin has, but he has the ability to control his gaps, which is so huge in this defense, and as a center or as a pass rusher to get penetration. Now, he's not going to win. He's not going to make the play off of that penetration, but his penetration is going to help for guys winning their own one-on-one battles or guys looping around.
And there's also better linebacker play, at least in my opinion, on the Giants, at least with Blake Martinez versus what the Lions had last year. I think
what Matt Patricia did, even just play. He had Jamie Collins as just like a stand-up inside linebacker. Like, Matt Patricia not only was an asshole, he was just a horrible coach.
Yeah. So better linebacker play out of the Giants versus the Lions as well. So if there's better linebacker play, then Danny Shelton can help set the table for more plays to be made by linebackers. Hopefully our edge rushers exist more this year than they did last year, because really that's what Danny Shelton is. He is a 1 year, $1 million guy who is going to really, really help set the table for everybody around him. So here's a question I want to ask you, because I feel like not a lot of people are talking about Danny Shelton. He is an underrated guy, and you might have said start off the show. I'm going to say this. Are you putting too much pressure on Danny Shelton to perform this year?
No, because I'm just asking him to be what he has always been.
Okay.
Which is a guy who's going to set up for other guys to make plays. I'm not going to look at Danny Shelton's tackles for a loss and sacks at the end of the year and grade him off of that.
Yep.
I'm going to grade off the impact he had against centers and guards and allowing plays to be made for Blake Martinez, the Tay Crowders, the Dexter Lawrence, Dalvin Tomlinson, those guys. So where Dalvin you did because you expected more out of him, where like however many tackles, like if he gives you more than, 3 tackles for a loss and a sack, that's all bonus to me, because that's just not what I expect out of him. But I do expect him to be the clear-cut nose tackle and to play a good amount of reps. If he's playing 25% of the snaps and here's the only way is one, he just plays bad. But if Austin Johnson is like right there mixed with him as far as like reps taken, because that should not happen. Danny Shelton should have much more expected out of him than Austin Johnson does.
He's turning 28 very soon. Thinking like
2 weeks, August 20th.
Yeah, so very, very soon. This may be now. Apparently next year's draft is littered with interior defensive linemen. Those are the things that I'm hearing.
Marvin Leal. There's another one. We talked about one. I can't remember what his name is. Anyways,
but I'm just thinking about, could this be a guy, especially for a team that the Giants will be win now next year? God willing, we win 10 games this year, and the Giants are Saquon window, Daniel Jones window. It's kind of right now. Let's do it right now. So this could be a guy that's like a 2-year, you know, 10 million, $7 million guy. If he performs well this year and performs better than maybe some people think, and he outperforms the 1 year, $1 million contract, maybe this is a guy that we just extend for 1 or 2 years, or we kind of let him go. So that's my, how about this expectation projection for Danny Shelton? Convince us to stay in blue next year. That's my projection. And I think he will. There you go.
For sure. Danny boy. All right, Danny Shelton, be a freaking man. You big old son gun. Like he's a big old dude, man. You know what? Be good. Be a cool dude, and make. I want Danny Shelton to be one of the guys that's like a must interview for us next offseason. That should be the goal for Danny Shelton. Make yourself a must interview for Talking Giants.
I like that.
All right. Anything else before we roll?
Nope. Mammoth of a human being. Let's do it.
All right. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. Until then, let's go Big Blue.